Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And streaming on YouTube.
Powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, this is the Morning Sports Desk. I'm CJ Baumgartner, joined as always by Corey Tackman and Kyle Gylsen, joining in to talk a little state tournament wrestling coverage. We also talk a little girls basketball playoff update along with the Minnesota Timberwolves getting a huge win. All of that, Kyle, we're looking forward to this conversation. But first, Corey, let's talk about our good friends, the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
In a brand new month at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, which means a brand new pizza of the month, the March pizza of the month, the Bronco. All meat pizza, a classic at Pizza Ranch. And all month long, you get a large Bronco for just $13. The Bronco, the March pizza of the month at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
My favorite pizza at the Pizza Ranch, by the way. That's the pizza of choice, which it's going to be real hard for me to turn down Pizza Ranch all month. I'm just putting that out there.
Don't fight it. Don't fight it.
Yeah.
I'm talking myself into lunch. Can I down a whole large pizza? We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle, you're joining in to talk some state wrestling coverage. A 4-day tournament this year. You survived the chaos. How is it with the 4 days this year?
You know, it actually went really, really well. I was, happy to be able to get out of there a little earlier in the evenings. Got there a little earlier in the mornings. Usually we weren't starting until about 10 o'clock or so, but wrestling started at 9 Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. But I thought it was a good format. Thought it worked really well. We were, on time, maybe just slightly below schedule for parts of the tournament. And the only time we really went long was Saturday night, and that's to be expected because you got a little more pomp and circumstance with the introduction of all of the wrestlers and the championship matches and a little bio of what they've accomplished in their careers. And then of course we had the awards between rounds of the weight classes. So I thought it was great, and like we talked about a few times during the tournament itself, Dan and I wouldn't be surprised if we go to a full 4-day tournament not too long down the road if the girls wrestling continues to grow at the pace that it is right now, and I really think it's going to.
Well, I mean, honestly, every other boys-girls sports where there's crossover, they're separate weekends, right? Boys and girls hockey have separate weekends. Boys and girls basketball have separate weekends. I think you're right. Moving to a full 4th day is absolutely in play, but we might not be that far away from just separate tournaments the way the sport's going.
I mean, we've had what, 4? This is our 5th state girls wrestling tournament, and we've gone from having 4 girls in a bracket to 8 girls in a bracket, down to a full 16, and really adding. There is a team tournament that's put on by the Coaches Association, but to add a full day or a full girls tournament through the high school league, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. I mean, in terms of time, we're just get there a little earlier, and we had, back in 2010, we had a 4-day wrestling tournament, and you'd run, one duel a day, Thursday, Friday, and determine the team champion on Saturday, in addition to wrestling your individual stuff. And then, back in 15 years ago or whatever, they went to that, putting all the team stuff on the Wednesday or Thursday of the state tournament, and then Friday, Saturday was all individual. So why not make Wednesday all day team stuff for girls and boys, and then individual for a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? We're there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's been just a huge tournament, a huge way to celebrate wrestling. And let's talk about some of the huge achievements. Let's start with the team portion. A lot of great things from our local area. Staples-Motley Cardinals, of course, back-to-back state champions as a team. United North Central having themselves a good wrestling tournament as well. Let's first talk about the Warriors and what they were able to do, and then we'll talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's nice to see. UNC's been a really good program for the last 5 years now. They hadn't, drew some tough draws going the last couple of years, so they got their first team victory in the consolation semifinals on the first night of the tournament, and then or the second night of the team competition. And then it was nice for them to, have their best finish ever, bring home some hardware, put that in the trophy case, consolation champion for 2026. So great to see the Warriors do that. Of course, Perham won a consolation championship for AA. I was surprised, no disrespect to Perham, I was surprised that the Yellow Jackets have been to the state tournament as often as they had. I think this was their 13th or 14th trip to the state tournament. They won runner-up back-to-back in 07 and 08, but had not placed since then. And so it was nice to see them get that consolation trophy. And, of course, Staples-Motley, they had the dynasty back in the 1980s, and they are putting together a dynasty now. Third straight year they've been in the Class A championship, back-to-back champions now. And I think it was their 9th overall championship as either Staples or Staples-Motley. And, the Cardinals got down there and they just did what they do. They've got the quality kids up and down that lineup, and Chatfield, quality team in their own right, but they were counting on picking up some points and bonus points early on and then hoping to hold on. And Staples-Motley, they ran the table there at the end, and they had enough quality kids in the lower weights that Chatfield was never able to build up that big lead. And once Staples-Motley got to 152, 160, it was all over.
I was surprised because I knew that Staples-Motley wrestling had the 80s, right? I knew that was kind of their decade. What I didn't know was that it was 6 straight years and 7 out of 8 years that they had won titles, 78, 80, and then 80 through 85. I just didn't. So when I knew it was dominance and I knew it was at a high level, I didn't know that when people said the 80s, they meant an entire half decade. I just thought it was like, oh, they're decent they had a couple nice years in there. Boy, oh boy, was that wrong.
I was going to high school and then college during that time.
Yeah.
A lot of friends that were wrestlers. My stepbrother was a wrestler, and when I was in college, I came home one weekend, and it was, somebody was mentioned, hey, you got to come home on Tuesday night or whatever it is, because we finally have a chance to beat Staples-Motley in a dual meet for the first time since the early 70s or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, they were fun to watch just because they were from central Minnesota, but it was brutal being on the other side of it, getting beat down year after.
Let's look over to the individual side of things. A lot of moving and shaking, but let's just kind of focus on the kids that won state championships at their respective weight classes. Just kind of give us the highlights from over the weekend in the individual portion of the tournament.
Well, Staples-Motley, of course, had multiple champions. Garrett Bjerga got his first. Gage Bjerga got his second. He'd won at 107 2 years ago, I think it was, as an 8th grader. Colby Tappy won back-to-back at 160 pounds, and he was just so fun to watch. He just comes out, has a job to do, and he's either going to tech fall you in the first period or he's going to pin you, and he's hardly going to work up a sweat doing it. Eli Greenwald had a runner-up finish. Was it Nyson, I believe, that finished 3rd or 4th? I can't remember. But yeah, there was, Staples-Motley with the 3 state champions. Detloff from Perham, state champion. Petrich, or Patrick, as they were calling him down there, from Little Falls, the state champion. Halverson from Barnesville out of Section 8, a state champion. And a lot of kids that were competitive, maybe you ran into just a better kid or had a kid who had a better day in the tournament, ended up working their way back. So we had a lot of kids to follow in the wrestlebacks and in the consolation semifinals, and even in the 3rd and 5th place matches. It was well represented by Central Minnesota down at the state tournament.
Yeah, I think we counted it up. I think it was 12 total medals for Staples-Motley, 11 individual podium wrestlers, and then their team title. I'm glad you brought up Colby though, because I was thinking about you hate to compare anybody to Thanos, but it's probably been since Craig Orlando where it just felt like, oh, this guy's just gonna win.
Yeah.
You're like, just put him in and he could have wrestled 152. You could have put him up a weight. Like, it just didn't matter. He was, for the second year in a row, like, pound for pound, probably the best wrestler in the entire tournament.
Yeah, he was outstanding, and we saw bits of that back in the section team competition that we did up in Walker a couple weekends ago. When Dan and I were joking amongst ourselves because we take these breaks between 52 and 160, and by the time we got back, it was over. He had a tech fall in like a minute and 15 seconds. We got a pin, and it's like, okay, so now we the first night I think I messed up and took a break before Colby was coming out, and then after that I said, okay, I'm never doing that again. We will talk as long as we have to, but we're not taking a break because when he comes out, it's not going to last long.
Where would I'm interested in your opinion on this because you've been to a ton of state tournaments. I think atmosphere-wise, I love state softball, I love state volleyball, and I love state wrestling. Obviously, the basketballs have their it's pretty incredible. Obviously, the baseball, there's the state football, but those three to me are the most kind of unique experiences. Do you have a particular state appearance that stands out to you? And like, what is it about the wrestling? Is it just the 8 mats all at once and the chaos, or what is it?
Yeah, I think, that because there is the 8 matches going on at one time, there is something happening on a mat somewhere that's got part of the crowd wild.
Yeah.
It might. And so I think that's it. It's just constant noise because somebody's doing something and somebody's yelling. It's not like, your team scores a basket. And, I love going to the state basketball tournaments. I've done baseball and softball. It's been fun. The people that have the restaurants in St. Paul say that it's even crazier for hockey.
Yeah.
I think it's just, and because almost every school has at least one kid, or even if it's not, your team, you might have a cousin wrestling. Wadena Deer Creek had cousins wrestling in New York Mills, and they met up in the section tournament and stuff like that. And so I think just the fact that there's so much happening all at the same time. So when you get to that individual portion of the state wrestling tournament, there's just this constant elevation of sound and always something to see. And I know the second on Friday. One of the kids, I believe he was from Hastings, wrecked his knees. We heard it was a blown MCL, and they carried him to the locker room. He came hobbling out with something on his knee. He couldn't bend his leg at all. Had him sitting there on the bench while the rest of the team competition was going on. And then in the individual, he's out there and he's walking around kind of stiff-legged because he can't bend that one leg. And his opponent started, going for like a single leg takedown and trying to get work on that one bad leg. And the fans, we couldn't figure out why fans on both sides of the arena were yelling for this one kid. Well, then we found out that he was getting picked on.
Yeah.
Everybody came, that guy, don't, no, that's not right. And so he came out and he was wrestling for a state championship on Saturday, finished second. This is the only loss of the year. He finishes 50-1, but he was like the crowd favorite because he was out there bum leg and all and giving it his all, and just about came home a state champ.
Crazy. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Kyle, any other news and notes to dump off about the state wrestling tournament while we got you here and just to put a bow on the wrestling season as a whole?
Well, I've got a list, and I was going to hand it to you guys if you wanted to put it up, but we had a number of coaches that were named either section coach of the year or assistant coach of the year. And I think I did go through one day on air about all of the kids or all of the teams that got some academic awards, because I thought that was important to point out, as always, for any sport. When you're wrestling, it's 1 or 2 duels a night. And same with basketball. I mean, you got 1 or 2 events per week. You got practice every other night. And for wrestling in particular, probably a tournament on Saturday. So there's not a lot of time to do your homework. And a lot of these kids are involved in other activities at the school. And to be able to get a top academic award in the state, I think Staples finished 4th overall in Class A, for academic awards. So, and most of our area teams were recognized either for their girls or boys or both. So I thought it's important that we mention that, not only accomplish good things on the mat, but in the classroom as well.
Kyle Gylsen doing a great job as always. Him and Dan Lawson do such a great job, not just with the state wrestling tournament, but just wrestling coverage all season long. We got to have a girls wrestling quad on there, covered a lot of Staples-Motley, Wadena, Deer Creek, and other area schools across central Minnesota this season. Kyle, you and Dan do such an excellent job as always. I want to give you and Dan Lawson a shout out. It was really cool to get to listen, and it's one of our most listened to broadcasts of the year because of all those towns having wrestlers, but also because you guys knock it out of the park. So great job with wrestling all year long.
I appreciate that. And I was just going to mention one more thing about, all the area towns. We kind of followed Chloe Weary of Sartell, Sauk Rapids. Chloe, after we got home Saturday night or Sunday morning, I can't remember when it was, Dan sent me a picture. Dan was an elementary wrestling coach back when Chloe was, not even tabletop high. And, he was telling stories about how she was putting on moves. Most elementary wrestlers, get a takedown and know a half Nelson or something like that. But she was putting on moves that junior high and varsity kids were able to, not doing maybe. And she was doing this as a very young age. So they knew she was going to be special. She got into the state tournament this year. She finished 4th last year. She was the number 1 seed. She had the best record of any girl in the tournament this year, and she was able to go down, and I think it was tech fall pin to win the state championship. So it's fun to see a former WDC elementary wrestler doing well, even though she's not part of the program anymore. Always a Wolverine, as Mr. Gallant said.
That's right.
Kyle, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, that's Kyle Gylsen, a part of our state wrestling coverage all season long, and it's really great just to put a bow on things, Corey, and to turn the page and get ready for a lot of other things that we have coming up now. You had a girls' basketball game on Saturday night between Perham and Wadena Deer Creek, and we know both of these teams. We know they're both well coached. They both have great players, and I think we always knew that there was a possibility that this game was going to be a grinded-out affair, low-scoring, defensive-minded. But I think we also knew that, both of these teams are talented, and one team or another could just come out guns blazing and establish their dominance. And on Saturday night, it was Perham.
Yeah, but we didn't know this.
Yes.
Like we knew that the Perham Yellow Jackets could shoot the basketball. We knew that they shot threes at a historic, prolific rate in the state of Minnesota, like just number of threes. We also knew that as a team, they shot very well from deep. But even if you talk to Coach Super or you talk to Coach Cressup, neither one of them would have ventured a guess that the Yellow Jackets would shoot 67% from three-point land during the playoff and 60% in total as a team. They were 14 of 21 from 3 in the game. And let me tell you, CJ, it felt like it could have been 44 of 66. The fact that they only shot 21 threes is mind-boggling to me. But they made 2 out of every 3, and that includes Coach Super starting to pull the plug on his starters at, I think it was the 10:46 mark when he took Kaya Anderson out of her. She's the lone senior, her last game in the Hive in her career. He pulled her out with just under 11 to play. So he started making those substitutions with that much time left. And we're talking about second and third units just cashing it in all night long. I cannot remember a time where I've seen another team just beat up on a team that is also good, right? See lopsided basketball games, and this was lopsided. But it's not because Wadena's bad at basketball.
No.
It was just an utter ultimate thrashing. I think Coach Cressup used the word buzzsaw, which is an understatement. They were 14 of 21 from three. It was over. Jordan said, Coach Cressup said, he goes, if we can make a couple buckets right out of the gate and just kind of like relax and settle into the game, we're going to be just fine. And instead what happened is they missed a couple of bunnies right out of the gate. And then the Perham Yellow Jackets turned into the best shooting team in the existence of the sport. I've never seen that. It was
They turned into the Splash Brothers Golden State Warriors for that entire game.
But better. I mean,
right.
67% as a team, CJ. This wasn't one girl
right.
getting hot and be like, oh, I'm going to go 4 for 4 today. Wrong. The team went 20.
This is where there's that, do you pick Andre Iguodala to shoot for planet Earth on the line, need to make 1-3? No, you wouldn't pick Andre Iguodala. You wouldn't pick Steph Curry. You would pick anybody on the Perham Yellow Jackets roster that was on the floor on Saturday night to make that shot.
It was so awesome. There was even a time, it was in the second half at some point. I don't remember how much time was left. The game was well within hand by this point, but it was someone from deep on the bench for the Yellow Jackets who made a 3. And I just happened to, as I was scanning back to the other end of the floor, I caught a Wolverine parent throw their arms up in the air and just start laughing and look at one of the other parents. And I could read their lips and go, what can you do?
Like sometimes it's your night and sometimes it's not. And that's not an indictment on how a certain team played. It's just sometimes another team has agency and another team just is able to have everything go their way. And there's nothing you can do about that other than just.
And the team that had agency was 007 agent good. It was CJ, if you shoot 67% from 3 and 60% as a team and your starters don't even play the last 10 minutes of the ball game, you're going to win a state championship. Tori Orline and Madden Greenway are not going to beat a team that shoots 67% from 3.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but the 8AA girls basketball semifinals are going to kick ass.
They are going to be so fun. And by the way, we're going to have coverage of both those games on the Superstation K106. Monaga versus DGF, the rematch from a year ago in this exact same stage where DGF was able to get the better of the Braves in a close affair. I know you were at that one. I know you said it was a great game a year ago. And then, of course, Frazee versus Perham in a Heart of Lakes matchup, and two teams who, by the way, were Heart of Lakes Conference champions, I believe is how that ended up working out. They both are at the top of the conference.
It's just going to be, and it's at Concordia. Like, it's just going to be
set, section championship on the line. And both teams all of the teams left could say, hey, if we win our game, we're the favorites to win. Like, that's just how tough this section is and how balanced it is once you get to the top 4. And I know we usually expect an upset or two because of how deep this section is, but I think it goes to show you just how great a runs these top 4 teams have been on, because there are great teams that, Monaga grinded it out with Pelican. That was a really fun game. Wadena Deer Creek has the capability to scare everybody. And, Frazee with their matchup, they played East Grand, I believe. So there's a lot of stuff that you got to look through in these tournaments. It's going to be really, really fun. By the way, another game that's going to be really fun will be the Pequot Lakes versus Crosby Ironton matchup in 7AA. They're going to go all the way to Superior, Wisconsin to play each other. But you know what?
By the way, we think 8AA is loaded. 7AA is actually the loaded section in the state this year.
Yes.
I think, what did I see? 5, 8, 11, and 13 are the QRF rankings for the top 4 teams in 7AA. When these two teams, when Crosby and Pequot played, when Crosby Ironton and Pequot Lakes played, it was a 9-point ball game. Pequot Lakes' QRF is 154. They're the 4 seed.
Whichever team gets out of there won't get the 1. It'll go to Providence Academy, but they'll get the 2. They'll get the 2 for sure.
It's not.
Double A is like the best might be the best basketball class top to bottom.
It has been. It has been for a while.
At least this class cycle.
Well, I mean, I think you could say in boys and girls. I find it to be because AAA, now I'm going to say this knowing full well what Providence Academy is, but AAA has become, am I going to sound like an old man here?
Say it. Come on.
The class of private schools. And I mean, kind of always has, if you think about De La Salle and whatever, but this AA is like the premier players in the state are in AA.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Jaden Sonnenberg is a Division I basketball player, and Kai Anderson is a Division II basketball player. I believe, is she going to Mankato? She's 5'10". That's what I learned the other night. Is she's like a giant on top of being, a pretty decent shooter.
The last Yellow Jacket around from their previous section title a couple of years ago.
Right. There's some like high quality team play, but the premier individuals in the state are in this AA tournament. It's really fascinating.
Really fascinating. All right, Corey, let's wrap up. By the way, I want to give congratulations to Sabika and Bertha Hewitt. Their seasons come to an end over the weekend. They played great games. Sabika took Castle Lake Bena down to the wire, and then Bertha Hewitt took Pine River Bacchus down to the wire, or at least had a halftime lead and gave them a good scare. So fun basketball there. We have no teams left that we are covering in 6A, no teams left that we are covering in 5A. We turn to Section 8AA, and we are going to follow the Yellow Jackets, the Hornets of Frazee, and the Braves of Monaga all throughout their runs, and which means that we will have coverage not only of the section semifinals, but of a section championship. And I am rooting like crazy for Monaga to win, so that way it would guarantee, Corey, we are going to cover a girls basketball team at the state tournament next week. So
good. And this is I cannot wait. We've said it before, but the best games in the state every single year are the section championship games. And this year, I think we could argue it's section semifinal, subsection championship, and section championship game. There's 2 rounds of games here now in our area that are going to be electric basketball games.
Electric. So that's fun. Speaking of electric basketball games, how about that Minnesota Timberwolves win yesterday?
Yeah, who they beat Denver, it sounds like, right?
Beat Denver on the road, a primetime game, Sunday afternoon. Wolves didn't necessarily have the best start, but they've gotten some wins, Corey, and they're 6-1 since the All-Star break, but their only loss coming to San Antonio. But I think if you look at some of the wins and you look at the way they played, they weren't necessarily like, whoa, electric, this is a top team in the West. It's more of like all right, you had to grind it out against the LA team without Kawhi. You had to grind it out against this bad team. You won, but you had to grind it out. So like there is a lot of things that you had to look at with this Wolves team where you're like, yeah, they've gotten wins, but like they haven't looked impressive. And since the All-Star break, this has been their most impressive win. And maybe their most impressive win in like a month. To take down this Denver team, I know they didn't have Aaron Gordon, but still, they have Jokic on the floor. Jamal Murray's been playing his best basketball in years. Like, this is a Nuggets team that is good. And the Wolves played their best game in a month. Dosunmu, since they've gotten him on the roster, it's been his best game, or at least the one where it feels like he's gelled the most with this roster. Dante DiVincenzo had a really nice game. Ant was able to have his moments. Naz Reid had his moments. And overall, you saw the team defense play the way it needed to. This overall is just a very nice, solid win for the Wolves. Now, again, they're going to drop a game at some point where we're going to go, oh, and the vibes are going to feel weird. But it's just that reinforcement, Corey, of when the playoffs come around, we know this Wolves team is going to lock in.
Yeah, and it might be the next game, right? Like they play the Grizzlies next, and the Grizzlies stink, and
most predictable loss of all time.
Yeah, it's just kind of some classic stuff. But I will say this: maybe they haven't been the most impressive, but what are we looking for? What's our standard for impressive? Because the thing that this team needs to do is win basketball games, and they're 6-1 since the All-Star break. Like, it would be if their level for what we consider impressive now is like they need to win by 25 going away every single night. And that's an unreasonable expectation, but that's how good they are, that sometimes to feel good about the Timberwolves, you need just go beat the Clippers by 25, would you please? When in reality, they beat the Clippers on the road at the Clippers in the middle of a road trip, and then followed it up with, yeah, you're right, beating Denver and in Denver is a much more impressive victory. It was a primetime game, all that stuff. But by golly, man, they're 6-1 since the All-Star break. They are they just need to win. They just need to win basketball games. And there's not a lot of games left. What are we down to, 25?
Yeah, roughly.
So just win them, man. Just keep winning basketball games. And it can't be important right now if it's ugly or impressive.
Right. Yeah. They play the Grizzlies tomorrow. They play the Raptors on Thursday, and then they play the Magic on Saturday, all at the Target Center. And then they go back out west to take on the Lakers and the Clippers. They got the Warriors, the Thunder, the Suns. So they kind of have a 5-game stretch there that's going to be important. A lot of those games on the road. And then they play the Jazz, Trailblazers, Celtics, who are getting Tatum back this week, Rockets, Pistons, Mavs, Pistons, Sixers, Hornets, Pacers, Magic, Rockets, Pelicans, and then your season's over. So there's a good chunk of games here left in this stretch that the Wolves are going to need to lock in and win. Taking a look at the standings right now, the Wolves are tied with the Rockets for the 3 seed at 8.5 games back of the Thunder. Of course, they're 5.5 games back of the Spurs. So really that 3 seed is kind of what you're eyeing if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not only the 3 seed important because you get a first round matchup, but it also means you avoid the Thunder in the second round, as it looks like they'll end up hanging on for the 1. I think we're all pretty confident in that by the end of the season, but it would mean that you wouldn't have to play the Thunder until the conference championship round if you get that far. But then you look, the Nuggets are only a game back. They're not going anywhere. A game and a half back of the Timberwolves are the Lakers, and then the Suns are only 2.5 games back, or 3.5 games back, of Minnesota. So again, a lot of fluctuation, as we've talked about, Corey. Every time the Wolves have a bad week and drop to like 7, we freak out. And every time the Wolves have a good week and get up to 3rd, we get overhyped. It's just, again, will they have a good week or the bad week the last week of the season? And that's pretty much going to determine playoff positioning.
Well, I was thinking about this too. They have a very interesting, unique sort of circumstance that I don't know a lot of other teams in the NBA have. And that is when you get to March, for 2 weeks out of the year, your arena you have to go on road trips for sometimes 2 weeks in a row or 2 out of 3 weeks like this year. Like they play the state basketball games in Wisconsin, in Madison at the Kohl Center.
Right.
In South Dakota, they play it at the Pentagon. I don't know where they play them in North Dakota.
I think they have 2 different sites, but it's usually like in Minot or something like that. Or like, yeah.
Yeah, so like
college courts.
And obviously those states don't have professional teams, but I don't think a lot of professional arenas are being used for state tournaments like they are in Minnesota. So that means in this important stretch of the year, every single year for the Timberwolves, they have to go on 1 or 2 extended road trips to accommodate the high school league, which I think that's a unique. It like battle tests them, which is important. And then maybe crucially, because they have those extended road trips, when it really gets down the stretch, they get to probably play a lot of those games at home, which is nice.
Looking at they're going to go on the road for that trip. But then, if you look, they have a decent amount of home games to end the year, or at least at the end of March, they kind of can stack a few together. So,
yeah. And because the boys tournament this year, by the way, is
a week later.
Will end on the 28th. So the boys tournament will be like the 24th through the 28th or 25th through the 28th.
Yep.
So starting that like.
And Target Center only hosts the quarterfinal round. So the Wolves actually do have a game on March 28th at Target Center at 4:30. But
the championships are at the U this year?
Yeah, it basically now they've kind of settled into this groove where the quarterfinal round is at Target Center and then the semifinals and championships are at the Barn, which
2 years that's been the case. That's not been the case for a lot of years.
Yeah, in recent history they've settled into this. And like I think it feels weird because it always felt like the Target Center's the NBA court, that should be the state championship spot. But also I think people have realized too that the Barn is just a lot smaller and gets louder and
new rules, man. And I'll be interested because I think now there's another venue right in downtown.
The Lee and Penny Anderson Arena in St. Thomas should there's no reason why Target Center, you should like Class A and AA should just have their quarterfinals there.
Or however you need to split it up, between the U and St. Thomas. By the way, they also host hockey in that arena. Would be a great spot. And I've started to see some few rumblings online of people like Maybe the girls' state hockey tournament could be at
Lee and Penny Anderson, yeah.
Be it at St. Thomas. Like, there's a pretty spectacular facility that's, you know, within throwing distance from some of the other ones that you're already using. It's not a terrible idea, man. I am kind of all about moving some of those tournaments around if necessary. And then it's important too, because you're going to be filling up these arenas.
Right. And that means it's going to be loud and it's going to feel playing at the Target Center is cool, obviously. But that being said, playing in a full arena for the state championship is cool.
I was at, I went down to US Bank yesterday to watch some college baseball. Wadena Deer Creek alum Josh Dykoff plays for Kansas, and Kansas was playing the Gophers. So I went to go watch Josh play, and it was neat. A kind of a weird venue, US Bank, but cool. That place seats 80,000 people, probably 20,000 less than that because they got to pull the seats back to accommodate the baseball stadium part of it. But there were 200 people there.
Right.
And 200 in a sea of 60,000 empty seats is...
You could hear that bat echo all throughout the building.
Yeah, it's a little, and the same can be applied then, I think, to some of these basketball tournaments and these hockey tournaments, so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. Like even we talk about the Fargo Dome and section football that we have around here. You get an entire town of 600 people to show up to the Fargo Dome, and it's not one full section. It's cool to be able to play there, but also think about how intimate those settings are and how loud they can be it feels weird to play big, important games kind of in the abyss of nothingness, even though being on those fields and in those arenas makes a special moment probably a little more special.
Exactly. Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. See ya.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.